Democratic Congressman Hakeem Jeffries of New York and Republican Congressman Leonard Lance of New Jersey. I want to start, gentlemen, both by saying I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're safe. Obviously, everyone in the country is pulling for your colleague Steve Scalise and all the people that were injured today. They're in our thoughts. They've been in our thoughts all day. I want to talk about the wrenching day you had, but I want to start with this news and start with you, Congressman Lance. The President of the United States, it appears, is currently under personal criminal investigation by a special counsel. What's your reaction to that news?
I support Mr. Mueller in his investigation, and I think that he will do a fine job and a thorough job and let the chips fall where they may.
What do you mean by let the chips fall where they may?
I want to see the report from Mr. Mueller, and I assume it will be a complete report, and I presume it will involve all aspects of this situation, Chris.
The fact you support him, and then Congressman Jeffries, I'll get your response as well. The fact you support him, I just want to be clear, because there are many members of Congress, Republicans, who have called into question his integrity, whether he's unbiased. Louis Gohmert, who's a colleague of yours, referred to him as dirty. You're saying you don't agree with that characterization. You trust him.
I do trust Mr. Mueller, and I was the first Republican in Congress to say that Attorney General Sessions should recuse himself in any matter regarding Russia, and I think that the appointment of Mr. Mueller by the Deputy Attorney General in his capacity as acting Attorney General was an excellent appointment.
All right, Congressman Jeffries, the President's central line for the White House post-Comey has been the President is not personally under criminal investigation. That appears to no longer be operative. What does that mean to you?
Well, as Leonard said, first of all, Bob Mueller is a talented law enforcement professional. He's respected by Democrats and Republicans, and I'm confident that he will follow the facts wherever that may lead. It is an extraordinary development in a year of extraordinary developments, and it is following the typical rhythm of a Washington scandal. You know, there's the potential crime, in this case, possible collusion between Russian spies and members of the Trump campaign team. And then there's always the concern about cover-up. In this particular instance, it's now gone all the way up to the top at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and there's a legitimate question that the American people deserve answers to as to whether President Donald Trump engaged in obstruction of justice or abuse of power.
So to follow up on that, there's reporting from the New York Times the President was seriously considering firing Robert Mueller. Just now, in the wake of this news, his son, who's obviously a noted advocate on behalf of his father, retweeting someone calling for the investigation to be shut down. What do you see as your constitutional duty as a member of Congress? Should the President try to take steps to shut down this inquiry at this point?
Well, I think the Judiciary Committee that I serve on, along with the Intelligence Committee, both in the House and the Senate, have an obligation to continue to make sure that we conduct a thorough, independent congressional investigation. I support an independent commission for that purpose so that we can ultimately get to the bottom of what happened in terms of the underlying potential crime of collusion, as well as any attempts to cover it up. And hopefully, this is not an issue of partisan politics. This is an issue of, Americans coming together, regardless of whether you're Democrats and Republicans, to ensure that there's a full, fair, and independent investigation, and that there's no interference with what the special prosecutor is doing on behalf of the American people.
Congressman Lance, to you, is it important for Republicans on the Hill to send the signal, whether publicly or privately, to the White House that Republicans on the Hill would not stand for attempts to end this investigation or to remove Mueller?
Yes, I think it is, and I send that message through this program this evening, and I do not think that Mr. Mueller should be discharged. And Chris, one wonders who would discharge him. I would imagine it would have to be the Deputy Attorney General, and I would imagine the Deputy Attorney General would not do that, given his testimony recently here on the Hill.
Yeah, of course, that's correct. It would be the Deputy Attorney General. He said he won't do that. Of course, in Nixon's case from the Saturday Night Massacre, he essentially fired people until he got someone who would. I want to turn now, Congressman Lance and Congressman Jeffries, to what happened today. It is horrifying. I think everyone feels shaken. Having worked in Capitol Hill as a reporter there, I know how much everyone's sort of in each other's space all the time. How are you feeling, Congressman Lance, about what happened today? And what has the atmosphere been like in that building today?
It's been very somber, very sad. Of course, we were all horrified in a bipartisan capacity on the events this morning. I know Steve Scalise. I know him relatively well. And I thought that the remarks at the lunch hour by Speaker Ryan and Democratic Leader Pelosi were eloquent. I thought the speaker was particularly eloquent, and I think we're coming together in this matter. And I hope, of course, that this never occurs again. And I think it demonstrates, Chris, that we have to try to work together, listen to other people on the other side of the aisle, and work in what is the greater good for the American nation.
Congressman Jeffries, if I'm not mistaken, you're playing in this softball game tomorrow night, and it's a great baseball game. It's a great tradition, you know, it has always struck me, it's a great thing about America, that even post 9/11, and as security's ramped up in lots of places, members of Congress are still accessible and approachable, and you can talk to them, and sometimes you can see them in Washington getting a cup of coffee, or they might be in your district. How important is it to maintain that?
Extremely important. This is a representative democracy, of course, Chris, and as a result of that, the people need to be able to talk to their representatives, share their thoughts, their feelings, their concerns, and petition their government, which is their First Amendment right. It's essential to the functioning and the integrity of our democracy. And so I think, despite the shocking developments, the sadness, the surrealness of the day, that Democrats and Republicans remain committed to that responsibility that we have to serve the people that we represent and to be accessible. I do think that there will probably be a reevaluation as to some of the security procedures, particularly whenever large groups of members of Congress get together, such as at the Republican baseball practice. Hopefully also, Chris, this will be a moment of clarity for the left and for the right, for Democrats, Republicans, for the White House, for Congress, for people inside the Beltway and outside the Beltway, that we all should rethink about the need to dial down the rhetoric. We can disagree without being disagreeable.
Congressman, you're nodding your head, and I saw members coming out of the closed-door briefing today, Republican and Democrat, talking about their feelings of threat, the rise in death threats, the sort of atmosphere of the country at this time. Do you feel like you're under threat?
I've held 4 town hall meetings in the last 2.5 months, and we had a good deal of security at the town hall meetings. I don't feel threatened, but yeah. I'm certainly pleased that there is security. I agree with Hakeem that I think that when there are 10 or 15 members of Congress in the future, there probably should be better security. The baseball game is a tremendous tradition here. I, of course, hope that we Republicans win, and Chris, that's why I am not a player, because I was a right fielder in grade school where I could do the least amount of damage, and I'm sure Hakeem is an excellent player, and I'm sure he will do very well for the Democrats. I will be rooting tomorrow for the Republicans.
Congressman Lance, somebody tells me you had that line all ready to go. Congressman Jeffries, what is your position?
Well, I play left field. I hope to do well. No one will mistake me for Ken Griffey Jr. But we are going to compete, both Democrats and Republicans. May the best team win, and then we'll all come together as Americans afterward.
Well, I want to thank both of you for appearing jointly tonight. I felt like it was important, actually, given what happened today. And I do hope, obviously, the best for everyone, and that we can maintain this kind of openness. And as you said, Congressman Lance, that people do talk to each other across different viewpoints. But I really appreciate you both coming out tonight, Congressman Hakeem